By the time Arya reached the northern kitchens, the second meal bell had already sounded, though no one treated her lateness as unusual. She had spent most of the morning in the observation gallery below the residence halls, where Earth had occupied three suspended windows and very little conversation. The kitchen smelled of grain oil, roasted root, and the bitter blue leaves Oren insisted were better when scorched at the edges. Someone had left Arya's usual cup beside the warming basin. She knew who had done it because the handle faced left. "You missed the children arguing about whether a river can remember being ice," Oren said as she sat beside him. He was repairing the clasp of a storage wrap while he ate, something he had been told repeatedly not to do near food and had therefore done for most of his adult life. Across the table, two navigation apprentices were trading portions of fruit according to an agreement neither seemed capable of remembering correctly. No one asked Arya what the observers had decided. The northern kitchens had long ago become a place where people were permitted to arrive from important things without carrying those things visibly into the room. Arya tasted the leaves and frowned at Oren. "You burned them again." He looked pleased with himself and moved three of them onto her plate. The conversation turned to a pressure imbalance in one of the western garden channels, then to a child who had hidden 6 seed stones inside a learning hall wall because she believed they would grow better in the dark. Earth remained unmentioned until Oren finished eating. Only then did he ask, "Did the question change?" "Not yet," Arya said. It was the answer she had given him twice during the previous span. The observers had accumulated generations of records without becoming careless about what records could and could not reveal. They knew how human populations organized around kinship, territory, belief, scarcity, affection, fear, and inherited memory. They had followed the way identity narrowed and expanded according to circumstance. What they did not know was whether watching those movements from outside had allowed them to understand the experience producing them. Oren folded the broken clasp into his palm. "Then perhaps it isn't an observation question anymore." Arya looked toward the kitchen entrance, where a woman from the lower workshops was trying to persuade a sleepy child to wear both shoes before leaving. The child had accepted one shoe as reasonable and regarded the second as an unjustified repetition. Arya smiled despite herself. That is what the continuity table said. The continuity table met in a room smaller than visitors usually expected. Its stone floor carried pale repairs from 3 different eras, and one section of the wall still bore the reddish staining left when a water channel ruptured during the Marin return. No one had removed it because no one had found a reason to. 7 people sat around the low oval surface, with another 3 listening from the side benches while performing unrelated work. Arya had attended enough of these gatherings to know that important decisions often occurred while someone was mending cloth. The question concerning Earth had not begun as a proposal for incarnation. It had begun many cycles earlier as a disagreement over interpretation, then survived long enough to become more interesting than the disagreement itself. Humans appeared capable of extending identity beyond the individual whenever necessity, love, ritual, danger, or shared purpose required it. Yet they repeatedly returned to the conviction that the self existed most fundamentally as this body, this history, this name, this family, this side of a boundary. From the spiral perspective, the persistence of such narrowing remained difficult to understand precisely because broader continuity seemed so ordinary. Tovin, who had spent more years with the Earth records than anyone at the table, disliked the phrase resistance to broader identity. It assumes the broader identity is the thing being resisted, he had said during one gathering. adjusting the lens over his damaged left eye. Perhaps nothing inside the life experiences it that way. Another observer had asked what alternative language he preferred. Tovin had shrugged. This is the inconvenience. I don't know yet. No one considered the uncertainty embarrassing. The mandate had preserved too many records of civilizations misunderstanding one another through confident description. Distance could make patterns visible while hiding the meaning of living inside them. A spiral observer could watch grief alter a person's decisions for 30 years and still not know what it meant to wake in the morning remembering one specific voice would never answer again. They could recognize the structure of attachment without inhabiting its particularity. Eventually, the limitation ceased to be a flaw in the records and became the subject of the records. Arya had not volunteered when incarnation was first mentioned. No one had. The possibility entered the room quietly through a remark from Seneth, an elderly thread worker whose hands shook whenever she was tired. If we are asking what remains invisible from outside, she had said, then perhaps outside is the position we have exhausted. She continued stitching a torn sleeve while the room went still. By the time anyone spoke again, the proposition had already become real enough to require care. There were easier forms of participation, but none satisfied the question. A partial continuity could be maintained through some incarnations, allowing orientation toward the vessel to remain faintly accessible beneath local identity. That approach had value in other circumstances. Here, it would contaminate what they were trying to encounter. Whoever entered Earth would need to become sufficiently local that broader continuity ceased to function as a private advantage. The implications were discussed for many spans before any person was considered. Forgetting could not be treated as a curtain that would simply be lifted when convenient. A human childhood would have to be a childhood, with helplessness, dependence, misinterpretation, learning, bodily fear, social consequence, and the slow construction of a self from what others reflected back. The incarnated consciousness might reject every idea the vessel held about continuity. It might never once suspect that anything beyond the human life existed, and that possibility was not regarded as failure. Arya became involved because she kept returning to the discussions after she no longer had professional reason to be there. She worked primarily with memory resonance and long-duration navigation, where the problem was not forgetting but preserving enough continuity across extreme perceptual change to prevent a crew from mistaking disorientation for discovery. The Earth question disturbed that habit of thought. For most of her life, she had helped people retain what altered conditions might otherwise scatter. Now the integrity of the work appeared to require someone to surrender the very things she had learned to protect. Her mother noticed before Arya told her. They were walking through the upper gardens where the vessel's oldest pear vines climbed a framework repaired so often that no original support remained visible. Land stopped near a basin where fallen leaves had gathered against the drain. You have begun saying goodbye to things that are not leaving, she said. Arya denied it badly enough that both of them laughed. They sat beneath the vines for nearly an hour without speaking about Earth. Lane told her that one of the lower residential corridors was being reopened after a century of storage use, and that several families had already begun arguing over who remembered the old room names correctly. Arya remembered playing there when she was small, before the lights along the eastern wall failed and everyone started using the newer passage. The memory surprised her with its precision, the rough edge of one doorway, the smell of warm mineral dust, the place where she had once hidden from Orin for so long that she forgot she was hiding. She wondered how many details had to gather before a place became impossible to replace with another. You could decide not to go, Lan said, eventually. There was no challenge in it. Spiral consent was not treated as more authentic merely because sacrifice made it difficult to withdraw. Arya ran her thumb along the worn stone beside her. I know. The decision came much later, and when it did, it contained less certainty than Arya had expected. She did not believe herself uniquely suited to Earth. Several others could have entered the same probability field without compromising the work. Her oversoul did not present the life to her as a completed design, nor did the thread workers claim to see what relationships would form once independent consciousness began altering one another. There were conditions, tendencies, a family line with sufficient stability for the intended depth of forgetting, and probabilities no one mistook for promises. The human life available to her began in a coastal region whose people measured much of their year by cold rain, school calendars, work schedules, holidays, and the gradual change of evening light. The parents were not chosen because they possessed hidden knowledge. Neither had unusual dreams recorded in the observation field, and neither occupied any position that would draw historical attention. They were simply two people whose lives crossed in a way that made another life possible. That ordinariness mattered to Iria more than she could explain. During the final span before descent, people continued behaving around her with an almost irritating normality. Oren brought her a repaired cup and claimed it was a different one, despite the familiar crack beneath the base. Two apprentices asked her to settle an argument about an old navigation chant, then refused her answer because it supported neither of them. Her mother gave her a bundle of dried garden leaves for a journey on which no physical object could accompany her. Iria carried them anyway, until the last possible hour. There was no public ceremony. Incarnations undertaken under the mandate sometimes involved large communal observances, but this one had been kept deliberately small because everyone involved understood how easily significance could become expectation. Iria walked to the descent chamber with Lan, Oren, Tovin, and Mira from continuity practice. The corridor outside had a handrail polished brighter at shoulder height where generations had rested their palms while waiting for the chamber doors. Someone had carved 3 shallow spirals into the stone centuries earlier, and no one remembered who. Tovin stopped before the threshold. "There is one thing I want withdrawn from the preparation record," he said. Mira raised an eyebrow. He looked at Iria rather than at her. "We keep writing that she is going to Earth to understand why people preserve individual identity. I don't think we know that is what she is going to understand." Oren smiled faintly. "That sounds inconveniently like you." Tovin ignored him. Iria looked through the open chamber toward the low resting platform and the dark surface above it where the resonance field had not yet been raised. The wording had seemed harmless when it was written. Now standing where she would surrender the ability to remember having asked the question, it felt larger than it had before. "Remove it," she said. Mira touched the record surface at her wrist, and the phrasing disappeared from the active preparation sequence. The underlying history remained preserved. Spiral records were not altered by pretending earlier understanding had never existed. Only the assumption was removed from the mission's operative intent. What remained was simpler. Participate deeply enough that observation could become experience. Lan embraced her without saying anything about return. That restraint hurt more than reassurance would have. Iria could feel the familiar seam along her mother's shoulder where a favorite outer garment had been repaired so many times that the repair itself had become part of its texture. She suddenly wanted to remember that seam forever, which was precisely the kind of wish the process could not promise to honor. When they separated, Lan touched 2 fingers to Iria's forehead and smiled. The field was raised gradually. The chamber did not brighten. Instead, familiar sensation began losing its ordinary agreement with itself. The pressure beneath Iria's back seemed first distant, then close, then irrelevant. Voices remained audible longer than faces remained meaningful. Somewhere beyond the chamber, the vessel continued carrying meals through corridors, trimming gardens, repairing channels, teaching children, opening old rooms, and holding thousands of lives that would proceed whether she remembered them or not. Her final vessel-side thought was not of the mandate, Earth, or the question preserved in the observation records. It was that Oren would probably continue burning the blue leaves and insist everyone else had poor taste. The thought dissolved before she could decide whether it comforted her. Months later, beneath a winter sky she had never seen, a woman named Elise held the edge of a hospital bed and shouted at a man named Matthew that he was breathing too loudly. Matthew laughed because fear had left him with no better response, and Elise told him this was not funny. A nurse adjusted the blanket, checked the time, and said the child was nearly there. Outside, rain moved against the dark windows in thin diagonal lines. When the baby finally cried, no memory of an ancient vessel stirred behind her eyes. No hidden observer measured the room. No part of her silently recognized that incarnation had succeeded. She knew warmth, pressure, sound, hunger, and the sudden interruption of one kind of darkness by another kind of sensation. Elise held her against her chest and repeated a name until it began, without anyone knowing it, to become the center of a world. Anna, she whispered, and for Anna, there was nowhere else. Anna's earliest memories did not arrive in order. There was a yellow cup with a chipped rim, the smell of wet wool near the front door, and her father's habit of tapping the steering wheel whenever a song reached a party light. There was the narrow hallway outside her bedroom, where one floorboard complained beneath almost anyone's weight except her mother's. There was also a winter morning when snow covered the cars along the street, and Anna became convinced the whole world had changed during the night. She stood at the window in socks and asked whether anyone had warned the birds. Matthew told the story for years because he liked the seriousness with which she had asked it. Elise preferred the one about Anna hiding beneath the kitchen table after breaking a ceramic bowl, apparently believing that invisibility could be achieved by refusing to answer questions. By the time Anna was 8, both stories embarrassed her, which only encouraged her parents to repeat them when relatives visited. She learned early that a person could possess memories that other people also considered partly theirs. Family life seemed to her to consist largely of negotiating who was allowed to tell which version. Their house stood 3 streets from a small inlet where the water changed color according to weather more dramatically than Anna thought water should. Summers smelled of salt, sunscreen, warm pavement, and the weeds Matthew kept promising to remove from the side garden. Winters reduced the neighborhood to rain, dark fences, and kitchen windows glowing before evening had properly begun. Nothing about the place seemed temporary to Anna. The world did not feel like somewhere she had arrived. At school, she was neither unusually gifted nor unusually difficult. She read quickly, disliked timed arithmetic, and once spent most of a month refusing to speak to a girl named Beth because Beth had told another child that Anna still slept with a stuffed rabbit. The rabbit's name was Mercer, though Anna denied this whenever anyone outside the family asked. She could remain angry beyond the point she remembered why she was angry, then forgive abruptly because maintaining the distance became tiring. Elise said this was one of the few qualities Anna had inherited equally from both parents. When Anna was 11, Matthew lost his job at the marine supply warehouse. The change entered the household gradually, first through phrases spoken after she had gone to bed, and then through disappearance of small things no one announced they were giving up. They stopped ordering food on Fridays. Elise began cutting Matthew's hair in the bathroom, badly at first, and eventually well enough that he stopped complaining. Anna learned that money could alter the emotional temperature of a room without anyone mentioning numbers. She also learned that adults could frighten one another while trying not to frighten children. One evening, she heard Elise say, "We are not losing the house," with a firmness that made Anna understand for the first time that losing the house was possible. She returned to bed without telling them she had heard. For several weeks afterward, she touched the hallway wall whenever she passed through it, not from superstition, but from a need she could not have named. The wall remained exactly where it had always been. Matthew eventually found work maintaining equipment at a ferry terminal across the inlet. The pay was lower, the house stranger, and he came home carrying a metallic smell that clung to his jacket even after it dried. Anna liked that smell because it meant he was home. Years later, she would encounter something similar in an industrial stairwell and be returned instantly to evenings when he entered the kitchen exhausted and asked what everyone had broken while he was gone. No observation from outside the life could have predicted that a smell would become a form of belonging. At 14, Anna began walking home with Daniel Ray's because their buses arrived at nearly the same time, and both disliked waiting for the second connection. Daniel lived beyond the old church, in a house filled with cousins, 2 dogs, and a grandmother who appeared to know the whereabouts of every teenager in the neighborhood, whether she could see them or not. He was quiet in classrooms and nearly incapable of silence outdoors. He could turn a 10-minute walk into 40 by stopping to examine construction sites, injured birds, unusual clouds, and any object someone had left beside the road. Anna found him irritating before she found him important. He borrowed pens and never returned them. He mocked the way she pronounced certain words after an aunt from another region had influenced her speech. She once left him standing in the rain after he spent an entire walk defending a movie she despised. The next morning, he placed 3 pens on her desk and said, 1 for the original, 2 for damages. They became friends without deciding to. Daniel began appearing in family stories before anyone noticed how often his name had entered them. Matthew complained that Daniel drank too much milk when he visited, while consistently buying more when he knew he was coming. Elise trusted him enough to ask him to carry groceries through the back door if no one answered. Anna knew which expression meant Daniel was genuinely upset and which one meant he wanted people to ask what was wrong. Their first serious argument concerned something neither remembered accurately afterward. Daniel believed Anna had repeated something private. Anna insisted someone else already knew and therefore it had not been hers to protect. The disagreement lasted 6 weeks. They passed each other at school with the exaggerated indifference available mostly to adolescents, each monitoring the other's indifference with great attention. Anna discovered that absence could occupy almost as much space as presence. It was Daniel who ended it. He appeared outside her house on a Sunday afternoon holding a plastic container from his grandmother's kitchen and said, "She made too much soup and apparently your entire family is starving." Anna knew immediately that the soup was an excuse because his grandmother did not make accidental quantities of anything. She let him stand outside longer than necessary. Then she opened the door wider. Neither apologized well. Daniel admitted he had expected her to understand why he was hurt without explaining it. Anna admitted she had known he was hurt and decided being technically correct mattered more. They ate soup at the kitchen counter while Matthew pretended not to watch them reconcile from the adjoining room. By evening, they were arguing about a television show as if the previous weeks had not occurred, though something had changed between them. Each had discovered that the relationship could be damaged and still be chosen again. When Anna left for university, Daniel stayed in the city and began training as an electrician. For the first months, they called frequently, then irregularly, then with the complicated rhythm of people whose daily lives no longer overlapped automatically. Anna made new friends who knew nothing about Mercer the rabbit, the Friday dinners, or the weeks when her father had been unemployed. She discovered the unusual freedom of entering rooms where no one possessed an earlier version of her. She also discovered, somewhat unwillingly, that freedom from being known could begin to resemble loneliness. University expanded her world without making it less ordinary. She studied environmental planning because a lecturer in her first year described cities as records of decisions people had forgotten making. She loved that sentence and spent several years learning that loving a sentence was not the same as loving every course required by the degree. She worked weekends in a cafe, grew into relationships through a combination of poor timing and poor communication, and learned to cook 3 meals well enough to serve them repeatedly. Her life did not feel like the unfolding of a design. Daniel visited twice during those years. On the second visit, they walked through a riverside district being redeveloped from old warehouses into apartments and offices. Anna criticized the project for replacing inexpensive space with polished public access that would eventually make the surrounding neighborhood unaffordable. Daniel listened for several minutes before pointing toward a row of newly planted trees. "You always do this," he said. "Do what?" "See the whole thing before seeing whether anybody likes sitting under the tree." She was annoyed because the remark sounded simplistic. She told him planning could not be based on whether one person liked one tree. Daniel agreed, then sat beneath it anyway. Anna remained standing until the argument lost enough importance for her to join him. Years afterward, she remembered that afternoon more often than the policies she had been trying to defend, not because Daniel had disproved her, and not because the wider consequences ceased to matter. She remembered the rough concrete beneath her palm, the paper cup rolling in circles whenever the wind reached it, and Daniel saying the tree would probably be taller than both of them when they were old. At 21, old age seemed sufficiently abstract that they could discuss it without fear. Their friendship survived distance partly because neither demanded that it remain constant. There were months in which they spoke every few days, and periods when a birthday message carried most of the relationship. Daniel married a woman named Sophia when Anna was 27. Anna stood beside his sister during the ceremony and cried unexpectedly when Daniel forgot half his vows, and Sophia laughed before anyone else could become embarrassed. Sophia never treated Anna as a relic from Daniel's earlier life. She invited her into the marriage's ordinary edges with a confidence Anna admired and sometimes distrusted only because she was unused to it. When their first child, Lucas, was born, Anna visited the hospital with flowers and immediately understood she had brought the wrong thing. Daniel handed her the baby anyway. Anna stared at the small sleeping face and said, "He looks angry." "He is related to me," Daniel said. "Give him time." For several years, Anna assumed her own life would eventually acquire the same recognizable shape. She dated, worked, moved twice, and became competent enough in her profession that younger colleagues began asking questions she still felt someone older should answer. A serious relationship with a man named Aaron ended when they realized they had each been waiting for the other to want a future neither actually wanted in the same way. The separation was quiet and devastating. Nothing dramatic happened, which made it harder for Anna to explain why she grieved. Daniel called the night she moved into a smaller apartment. He did not tell her the breakup had happened for a reason, did not ask whether she had learned something, and did not suggest that another relationship would arrive. He asked whether she had eaten. When she said no, he stayed on the phone while she searched through boxes for the pan she needed to make eggs. "You don't have to stay on," Anna said. "I know. Sophia is going to think you're having an affair with a depressed woman surrounded by cardboard." Sophia handed me the phone charger. Anna laughed harder than the sentence deserved. It was the first moment that evening in which the apartment did not seem like evidence of a failed future. She never forgot that he had stayed, though Daniel later remembered almost nothing about the call. The following spring, Anna accepted a planning position back near the coast where she had grown up. She told herself the decision was professional, which was partly true. Elise had developed arthritis severe enough to make some daily tasks difficult. Matthew had become increasingly reluctant to drive at night, and Daniel's family lived 20 minutes from the new office. None of these reasons alone would have brought her back. Together, they became sufficient. The city had changed while remaining offensively familiar. The marine supply warehouse where Matthew once worked had become a fitness center with expensive apartments above it. The old church near Daniel's childhood home had been converted into a performance space. Anna's school still had the same exterior walls and an entirely different entrance. She found that returning did not restore the place she remembered. It forced the remembered place to coexist with the one that had continued without her. Elise and Matthew stayed in the same house. The hallway floorboards still complained, though the sound had deepened, and the yellow cup had survived in the back of a cabinet because Elise believed throwing away intact objects invited unnecessary replacement. Anna began visiting on Sunday mornings, usually bringing bread from a bakery her parents considered overpriced while eating all of it. Matthew had grown thinner. His hair had gone white in a way Anna somehow experienced as a personal betrayal. Daniel and Sophia's house became another recurring room in her life. Lucas was 7, and his younger sister Maya was 4, an age at which she regarded most adult conversation as an interruption. Anna attended school performances, birthdays, hurried dinners, plumbing disasters, and one Thanksgiving during which Daniel burned the vegetables badly enough that Matthew declared him finally qualified to join the family. No one discussed what Anna's exact relationship to the children was supposed to be. Maya simply began introducing her as Aunt Anna, and eventually everyone accepted the designation as if it had always existed. One rainy evening, Anna arrived after work to find Daniel repairing a lamp at the dining table while Maya drew animals beside him. Sophia was upstairs helping Lucas with a project neither parent understood. Anna removed her wet coat, took the chair she usually took, and complained for several moments about a public meeting in which 40 people had objected to a pedestrian crossing for 40 incompatible reasons. Daniel continued working on the lamp. When she finished, he said, "Did anybody want to sit under the tree?" Anna stared at him. Nearly 20 years had passed since the afternoon by the river. "You are never going to let that go." "No." Maya looked up from her drawing. "What tree?" Daniel and Anna answered the same time. "Nothing. A very important tree." Maya narrowed her eyes, decided adults were once again being useless, and returned to drawing. Anna began laughing, and Daniel did too, not because the joke was particularly good, but because the years inside it belonged only to them. No one else at the table could have found the same thing funny. That limitation did not diminish the moment. It made the moment theirs. Anna did not know that anything had been asked by anyone before her birth. She did not know that a vessel older than every building she had ever entered carried records in which another name had once belonged to her. She did not know that observers had wondered why consciousness accepted the boundaries of a single identity when wider continuity was available beyond it. On that wet evening, none of those facts would have helped her understand why Daniel's remembered sentence mattered. She knew only that he had been there when she was 14, 21, 32, and now 40. She knew he remembered people she had been that no longer existed anywhere except in stories, gestures, and the altered expectations each had carried forward from the other. She knew that if every person in the room suddenly understood every thought she possessed, something would be gained and something else might cease to be necessary. For now, Daniel had to ask when he did not know, and Anna had to decide whether to answer. Sophia came downstairs and asked why everyone was laughing. Daniel opened his mouth, but Anna shook her head. You wouldn't understand. Sophia looked at her for a moment, then smiled. Good. She crossed the room, kissed Daniel on the forehead, and began clearing Maya's abandoned pencils from the table. Outside, rain moved softly against the windows while the repaired lamp illuminated only the small circle of people gathered beneath it. Anna reached for one of the pencils before it rolled to the floor. For reasons she could not have explained, she was suddenly very glad that no one in the room was interchangeable. By 53, Anna had stopped measuring adulthood by the things she expected eventually to happen. The habit had faded without a decision, somewhere between her mother's second knee surgery and the year Lucas left for college. She still made plans, sometimes elaborate ones, but no longer regarded the unchosen paths as evidence that her life had failed to become complete. On Sunday mornings, she continued bringing bread to her parents' house, although Matthew now cut each loaf into slices far too thin for Elisa's liking. Daniel claimed this proved old age had finally made him economical. Matthew died during an ordinary February. He had been ill long enough for the family to understand what was happening, and well enough until near the end that understanding never quite became readiness. Anna spent his final afternoon beside the bed listening while he complained about the hospital coffee and asked whether anyone had remembered to cover the plants at home. When his breathing changed that evening, she held his hand because there was nothing useful left to do with hers. Afterward, she remained seated for several minutes because standing seemed to belong to a world in which he was already dead, and she was not yet willing to enter it. Grief did not behave as Anna expected. The funeral was difficult, but the grocery store 3 weeks later was worse because she reached automatically for the crackers Matthew liked and remembered before touching the box. She cried once while cleaning the lint filter in his dryer. 6 months after his death, she heard a man laugh in a restaurant and turned so quickly that her chair struck the table behind her. None of these moments felt profound while they were occurring. Elise left Matthew's jacket on the hook beside the back door for almost a year. Anna noticed it every Sunday and said nothing. When the jacket finally disappeared, she noticed that too, and again said nothing. Her mother had begun inhabiting the house differently, moving objects that had remained in the same places for decades and sleeping with the bedroom door open because she disliked waking into silence. Anna started staying later after their Sunday meals, though neither woman acknowledged the change in routine. Daniel understood Anna's grief in the particular way available to someone who had known Matthew before either of them understood their parents could die. He remembered the badly cut hair, the overwatered side garden, and the years when Matthew had driven them places while pretending not to listen to their conversations. At the memorial gathering, Daniel told Anna about the first time Matthew had caught him trying to climb through her bedroom window after curfew. Anna stared at him. You told me he never saw you. He told me not to embarrass you by letting you know. She laughed and then covered her face because the laugh became something else before she could stop it. Daniel waited beside her without touching her until she lowered her hands. There were parts of Matthew that now existed in Daniel's memory and not in hers. Instead of resenting this, Anna found herself grateful that her father had occupied rooms she had never entered. Years accumulated through repetitions that changed almost invisibly. Maya became taller than Anna and then old enough to resent being reminded of it. Lucas moved inland, returned with a partner named Theo, and began calling Daniel for advice about repairs he had once complained about being forced to help with. Elise sold the family house when the stairs became difficult and moved into an apartment overlooking a public garden. Anna took the yellow cup before the house was emptied, though she told herself she wanted it only because it still worked. The final afternoon in the house was unexpectedly cheerful. They ordered food and ate on the floor because the table had already been taken away. Elise found pencil marks inside a closet where Matthew had recorded Anna's height until she was 13, after which Anna had apparently refused further measurement. Daniel discovered Mercer the rabbit inside a box labeled tax records and carried him through the house by one ear until Anna threatened to throw him into the street. You kept him, Daniel said. My mother kept him. Elise looked up from across the room. You packed that box when you went to university. Anna took the rabbit from Daniel and inspected its flattened fur. One eye had been replaced with a button sometime before she could remember. The stitching along its side had been repaired in thread that did not match. She felt briefly embarrassed by the tenderness the object produced. Then she placed Mercer carefully into the box she was taking home. The house passed to people they never met. For a while, Anna avoided driving along the street because seeing unfamiliar curtains in the windows irritated her more than she considered reasonable. Eventually, the irritation softened into curiosity. Someone painted the front door green. Someone removed the hedge Matthew had spent 20 years failing to shape correctly, and Anna surprised herself by admitting the yard looked better without it. Elise lived another 9 years. Her world narrowed gradually but did not become empty. She knew the names of nearly everyone who worked in her building, maintained strong opinions about the garden staff, and developed a friendship with a woman across the hall based primarily on mutual complaints about the heating. Anna visited more frequently as her mother's mobility declined. Some evenings they spoke for hours. Others they watched television without saying anything worth remembering. Near the end, Elise began confusing small details. She once asked whether Matthew would be joining them for dinner, and then corrected herself before Anna answered. Another time she called Anna by her sister's name, though Elise had never had a sister. Anna expected these mistakes to frighten her more than they did. The woman beside her remained unmistakably her mother even when individual facts loosened around the edges. One morning, Elise asked Anna whether she had been happy. Anna assumed she meant herself and began answering before Elise interrupted. No, me. Anna looked toward the window, where rain had gathered in small beads along the glass. She said she thought so. You think? I wasn't there for all of it. Elise considered this and smiled. Neither was I. It became the last conversation Anna remembered clearly. Elise died several weeks later while Anna was driving to the apartment. Delayed by road construction, she cursed for most of the journey. For years afterward, she occasionally imagined that leaving 10 minutes earlier might have changed something, though she knew there had been nothing left to change. The mind seemed capable of manufacturing responsibility simply because helplessness was harder to hold. Daniel never argued with her when she mentioned it. He only asked what Elise would have said about the traffic. Anna retired at 67 after postponing it twice. Her colleagues held a gathering in a meeting room she had spent years complaining was too cold. Someone assembled photographs of projects spanning 4 decades, including the Riverside district where she and Daniel had once sat beneath a newly planted tree. The tree was enormous now. Anna stood before the photograph longer than she intended. She and Daniel visited it the following spring. Sophia came too, bringing coffee and refusing to listen while Daniel insisted he remembered exactly where they had sat. The redevelopment Anna had criticized decades earlier had become another old part of the city, altered again by decisions no one involved in the original arguments had anticipated. Some of her concerns had proved justified, others had not. The three of them found a bench beneath the tree and remained there until the afternoon cooled. Daniel had begun walking with a cane after a hip injury he blamed on a ladder, and Sophia blamed on his refusal to admit ladders had age requirements. Anna watched strangers cross the plaza carrying groceries, pushing bicycles, arguing into phones, and guiding children toward the river. None knew that 3 elderly people beneath the tree were remembering themselves at 21. Daniel died first. A stroke took most of his speech and much of the movement from one side of his body, but not immediately his ability to recognize people. Anna visited several times each week. During one visit, she brought 3 cheap pens and placed them on the table beside his bed. Daniel looked at them, then at her. 1 for the original, Anna said, 2 for damages. His laugh emerged unevenly and ended in a cough, but it was his laugh. Anna sat beside him for the remainder of the afternoon with her hand resting near his. She did not hold it continuously. Sometimes he wanted touch, and sometimes he pulled away, and the distinction remained his to make. Near evening, Daniel struggled to say something Anna could not understand. She leaned closer, asked him to repeat it, then guessed incorrectly twice. Frustration tightened his face. Anna nearly told him it did not matter, but she knew him well enough to know that it would make him furious. She waited. Tree, he finally managed. Anna looked at him for several seconds. Yeah, she said, I remember. Daniel closed his eyes. The effort left him exhausted, but his expression settled. Anna stayed until Sophia arrived and then drove home through streets both of them had known as children. Daniel died 4 days later. The loss was unlike losing her parents. There was no childhood expectation beneath it that life had always been moving toward this eventual order. Daniel had existed beside her age rather than above it. His death removed someone who carried versions of Anna no living person now remembered in quite the same way, including a 14-year-old girl furious about a secret and a 21-year-old woman standing beside a tree while insisting that one person's experience could not determine the meaning of a place. For a long time, Anna continued speaking to him privately. She did not believe he could hear her. The conversations happened because 48 years of directing certain thoughts toward one person had left a shape that his absence did not immediately erase. When she encountered something ridiculous, she still composed the sentence she would have sent him. Occasionally, she laughed before remembering there was nowhere to send it. Sophia remained part of Anna's life, though their relationship changed after Daniel's death. They discovered they had relied on him to carry certain portions of conversation between them and now had to learn one another without that bridge. Sometimes this brought them closer. Sometimes it exposed differences they had previously been able to ignore. Neither tried to preserve the relationship exactly as it had been. They had both lived long enough to know that preserving a form could become a way of losing what was still alive inside it. Anna's own body began asking for smaller distances. Her knees objected to stairs, her hearing weakened in crowded rooms, and the coastal winter seemed colder each year despite records insisting otherwise. Maya visited often and brought her children, who regarded Anna's apartment as a place containing mysterious old objects that were permitted to touch only after asking. One afternoon, the younger child found the yellow cup. "Why do you keep this?" Anna looked at its chipped rim. "It was in my kitchen when I was little." The child waited, apparently expecting a more sufficient explanation. Anna had none. That's it. At 82, Anna moved into a smaller residence near the inlet. From her window, she could see water on clear mornings and only gray brightness on rainy ones. She brought very little furniture, but Mercer came with her, as did the yellow cup and one photograph of Daniel beneath the riverside tree. None of the objects were valuable. Their importance could not have survived replacement with identical versions. Her final illness lasted months rather than days. Maya handled appointments, Sophia visited when her health allowed, and Lucas traveled back whenever work permitted. Anna disliked being helped into the shower and apologized too often for needing things. She was occasionally frightened, frequently tired, and still capable of becoming irritated when people spoke around her as if dying had made her less present. One evening, Maya sat beside the bed while rain crossed the window. Anna had slept through most of the afternoon and woke disoriented, asking whether her father had gone to work. Maya did not correct her immediately. She took Anna's hand and waited until recognition returned on its own. "I did it again," Anna said. "You did. Don't tell anyone. I'll tell everybody." Anna smiled. "You always were terrible. Daniel taught me." For a moment, Anna's face changed at the name, not dramatically, only enough that Maya tightened her hand. Anna looked toward the window. "He was." "What?" "Daniel." Maya waited. Anna seemed to search for the rest of the sentence, then stopped trying. "He was Daniel." Maya did not ask what she meant. Anna died before dawn 3 days later, with Maya asleep in the chair beside her. There was no final declaration. Her last waking exchange concerned whether the blanket was too warm. Maya adjusted it. Anna said that was better, and sometime afterward the breathing in the room became quieter until it ceased. Far beyond every distance Anna had ever learned to imagine, continuity returned without immediately becoming recognition. The first sensation Iria understood was pressure beneath her hand. She opened her eyes to a ceiling she had known for most of her life and could not name. Someone sat nearby, but the face would not settle into meaning. The air carried a bitter scent from somewhere beyond the restoration chamber. Iria began to cry. No one asked whether she remembered the vessel. No one asked what Earth had taught her. No one opened the mission record. A woman moved closer, only after Iria reached toward her. It was land, older in ways Iria would need time to understand, and familiar in ways her returning continuity had not yet assembled. Iria looked at her mother's face and then down at their joined hands. "Daniel," she said. Land did not know the name. She held her daughter's hand anyway. Much later, When Arya could walk the old corridors without becoming disoriented, Tovin brought the unopened preparation record to her rooms. The question preserved inside it had waited through an entire human lifetime, and could wait longer. Arya placed her palm on the record surface, but did not open it. On the table beside her stood a cup Oren had repaired before her descent. Its handle faced left. Arya looked at it for a long time. Then she turned it slightly until the handle faced right.
If this transmission resonated, the spiral continues. You did not arrive here by chance, and you do not leave unchanged. More teachings are unfolding across the Vaharat library, each one meeting you where you are, not where you think you should be. Follow resonance. The next threshold is already listening.